Today I shall be reading a poem by John Donne, The Good Morrow. Well, this lecture doesn't have any scholarly pretensions. I would read this poem as I would have read this poem in the classroom, and this lecture is primarily meant for the undergraduate students. Now the question is how to read a poem, how we shall read a poem in the classroom. Shall we start with the poet giving a detailed analysis or a description of the poet's biography, his background, his characteristics? Or shall we begin from the poem, read the poem first, try to analyze the poem, and then go backward, giving you the important points about the poet and the kind of poetry he used to write? John Donne is a very famous poet, and everyone knows that he is known as the leader of the school of metaphysical poetry. Now please look at the year of his birth and death. And one very interesting thing I want to point out to you, that there are two poets. Both are John, and they are connected with William Shakespeare in a way. One John was born 8 years before the death of Shakespeare, and the other John was born 8 years after the birth of William Shakespeare. I mean John Milton, who was born in 1608, 8 years before the death of Shakespeare in 1616. And this is John Donne, 1572, 8 years after the birth of William Shakespeare. Well, to me, it seemed to be a very interesting point, and therefore I just shared this point with you. Now, I was talking of metaphysical poetry, but the three questions that will come to our mind immediately are these. Number one, what is the meaning of the term metaphysical? Number two, who coined the term? Number three, what are the characteristics of metaphysical poetry? But as I said, I'll not talk about them right now, but I shall go to the poem and let us see whether we can have the answers from the poem itself, or rather whether we can begin to explore the school of metaphysical poets from the poem itself. Now the first stanza of the poem I have written, and I shall be writing the two other stanzas, and I shall try to discuss the poem with you. Now look at the poem, because and try to read the poem. Reading is understanding. Look at the poem, please, and I read. I wonder by my troth what thou and I did till we loved. Were we not weaned till then, but sucked on country pleasures childishly? Or snorted we in the seven sleepers' den? 'Twas so. But this all pleasures fancies be. If ever any beauty I did see, which I desired and got, 'twas but a dream of thee. Now this is the poem, the first stanza of the poem. And now let us look very closely. Look at the first line. I wonder by my troth. Troth means truly. meaning I wonder truly, what thou and I did till we loved? Do please note the conversational style, as if the lover is talking to the beloved and asking her what they did before they fell in love with each other. What was their life like before they loved each other? Now look at one thing, please. Well, the opening is rather an abrupt opening. We may imagine that perhaps the lover and the beloved had been conversing with each other for a time, for some period of time, and suddenly this sentence is taken out, and the poem begins with this sentence. So two things we can note: one, an abrupt beginning, and a conversational style. I wonder, my troth, I wonder truly, what thou and I did till we loved. So what had been our life like before we loved each other? Now this also points out another thing which one of the critics has pointed out. So this points out that to the poet, love is everything. Anything else, anything excepting love is meaningless, is futile. So what we did before we loved each other was something futile. That was a kind of a futile, meaningless, useless life. Life proper, as if begins from the point that they start loving each other. So we begin with the first question, or rather from the question we can have a proposition or a premise that life without love is meaningless. What we did before we loved each other, meaning life without love is meaningless. How meaningless? In what way it was meaningless? How can that situation be explained? The meaninglessness of life, how can that be explained? Were we not weaned till then? Now, well, look at the word, particular word, specific word that Donne uses, weaned. So weaned means separated from the mother's breast. The milk-sucking baby, innocuous, innocent, foolish, because its brain has not developed. So were we like the innocuous, innocent, foolish babies, unweaned from the mother, who were still sucking the breast of the mother? So the situation of the man who has not tasted love is the situation of a baby who is still sucking on mother's milk. Were we not weaned till then, but sucked on country pleasures childishly? To please, how it is explained. Once again you can note, sucked. Look at the word suck. The sucking baby, sucking mother's milk. And then childishly. So we were sucking. What had we been sucking? Country pleasures. The pleasures, entertainments, enjoyments. But look at the word country. So country, that word perhaps means vulgar. Country, vulgar, rustic, unintellectual. So what was our pleasure at that time? Country pleasures, vulgar pleasures, rustic pleasures. non-intellectual pleasures? Because we did not have the taste of love, because we did not love each other till then. So life before love is the life of a baby, a foolish, idiotic and innocuous baby, because the baby's brain is not developed. The baby cannot think. So a man's life before he or she tastes love is like that of a baby. What kind of a baby? That sucks on country pleasures. Meaning the real pleasure of life is love. All other pleasures are vulgar pleasures, useless pleasures. So we didn't have love, therefore we sucked on country pleasures. Or snorted we in the 7 sleepers day? Now this is an illusion. And well, look at this, 7 sleepers day. This is an illusion. And I shall point out the illusion. I shall write down the illusion later on. But right now please remember that there is a legend about the sleepers. 7 sleepers, 7 young men who took shelter in a cavern or a cave because they wanted to save themselves from the tyrannical king who was searching for the new Christians, and to save themselves they had taken shelter in the cave, in the cavern, and the cave, the mouth of the cave was closed. They were entombed, and there they slept for 200 years. And after 200 years, when the cave was opened, they were found alive. So we'll look at the reference to the legend. 7 sleepers then, the 7 young men sleeping, meaning, well, before we loved each other, what was our life? Had we been sleeping only? Was it a sleep, waking sleep? So we were not awake, we were asleep because we didn't have love. It was so. Yes, he confirms. The speaker confirms. Yes, it was so. Yes, life without love was the life of a baby, unthinking baby. Life before love was the life of a baby sucking mother's milk, and we sucked on country pleasures, vulgar, unintellectual pleasures. Because only real pleasure, the real pleasure lies in the pleasure of love. And life before love was the life of sleep. We were like the sleeping, this young men, the 7 young men sleeping for 200 years. We are like them. And yes, it was so. It was so. So the speaker confirms. But this, look at the word but here means except, save. But this, except this, here this means love, except love. But this means except this, except love. But this, all pleasures fancies be. All other pleasures are meaningless, fanciful, unreal. So all other pleasures are unreal. Fanciful means unreal. The pleasure that love gives is the genuine pleasure, is the real pleasure. If ever any beauty I did see, which I deserved, which I desired and got, 'twas but a dream of thee. Now, once again, the speaker reiterates the strength of love. The speaker says that, well, it is possible that he desired for other beauties in earlier times, Or maybe that, well, he got in touch or he established a relationship with some other girls before this real relationship with his beloved. And all these desires, all these relationships were meaningless, were fancies, because the real relationship or the real meaning of love he has understood only after the present relationship with his beloved. Now, well, I have tried to analyze the lines of the first stanza and look at this. Well, how the poem begins. The poem begins abruptly. Number two, there is a conversational style. Number three, as if there is an epigram, as if there is a concentrated statement. What is the concentrated statement? Life without love is meaningless. As if that is the concentrated statement. And then it is amplified, it is analyzed. How meaningless? As meaningless as the sucking baby's life, as meaningless as those who suck or who enjoy vulgar pleasures, as meaningless as the life of the 7 sleeping men who were entombed inside a cavern. Now look at this. So, abrupt beginning, conversational style, epigrammatic statement, and gradually the epigram is explained. And as the epigram is being explained, the poem develops. The poem blossoms. The theme of the poem comes clear as the initial epigram is explained or amplified. So, if we remember the points that we have made right now, we shall see that when we discuss the characteristics of metaphysical poetry, we will find that we already know this. Now we shall come to the second stanza. Now let us come to the second stanza. Well, remember the first stanza. Well, we ended the first stanza with the 7 sleepers. Sleep as one of the principal images used by the poet. So sleep, where mind, sleep is a situation, sleep is a condition when mind doesn't work, when our consciousness does not operate properly. So before loving each other, we were virtually in a state of sleep. And look at the second stanza. And now, good morrow to our waking souls. Now look at this, awaking souls, meaning love has awakened us. We had been sleeping for such a long time, and now love has awakened us. And good morrow, good morning, greeting. So let us greet each other. The lover and the beloved are as if greeting each other, because they are no longer asleep. They are awake from the sleep of a loveless condition. And now good morrow to our waking souls, which watch each other, which watch not each other out of fear. Now please note fear, I have underlined that. Fear here means suspicion. We are bereft of any jealousy, any suspicion. Our love is so complete, our love is so whole, so pure, that we do not have any jealousy, any suspicion, and we look at each other without any fear. For love, all love of other sides controls. So we do not need to see any other thing. We don't have the desire to see any other thing, because our love is so powerful. Our powerful love controls our love or our desire to see any other object in the world. Our love is so self-sufficient. We are so full, we are so satisfied because of our love that we do not need to see any other thing. And makes one little room and everywhere. So it is love. Now, well, I shall be right now referring to another poem by John Donne, Sun Arising, where he says the same thing, that the room of the lover and the beloved is the whole world. Now let me read a few lines from that poem. Now, in that poem, the poet is asking the sun to give sunshine only to their room, and that will be enough, because their little room is everywhere. Now, these are the lines. Shine here to us, and thou art everywhere. This bed, thy center is, these walls, thy sphere. So this is Sun Arising. Well, then repeats what he says over here, the same thing, that the world of the lover and the beloved is so complete that they do not need any other world. The world of love can provide them everything, and not only provide them everything, well, they will provide everything perfectly, because there is no lacuna, no corruption, no want in the world of love. Let sea discoverers to new worlds have gone, let maps to others, world on worlds, have shown. Let me possess our world, each has one and is one. Now, well, we have just seen that, well, John Donne, 1572, the Elizabethan period, a period of exploration. Navigators were going to new places, discovering new places, new countries. So, new worlds, and perhaps there is a reference to the other continents which were till then unknown to the world, to the people. So these things are going on. New places are being discovered, new continents are being discovered and explored, but the lover and the beloved, they do not want anything, because their world is sufficient for them. Their world is so self-sufficient that they do not need to have anything else from anywhere. And let maps to others, worlds on worlds. Let me possess our world. Let me possess our world. Let us possess, not let me. Well, sorry, it should be let us. Our world, each has one and is one. So the world of the lover and the world of the beloved, they have their own self-sufficient worlds. But the two, the world of the lover and the world of the beloved, when the two are conjoined, they become one world, one complete and whole world. That is the world of love. So, since they have entered the world of love, they do not need anything else. Now I come to the third stanza, the final stanza of the poem, and let us once again try to recapitulate what we have seen in the first stanza. The life without love is meaningless, and love alone can give a true taste of life. Life without love is the life of a sleeping man, and when the lover and the beloved begin to love each other, they are awakened and they begin to live in the world of their love. Each of them has one, the lover's world and the beloved's world. They have their separate individual worlds, but when the two come together and when the two worlds conjoin, they become one world. That is the world of love. And the world of love is the highest form of life that can be provided to the lover and the beloved, or rather to the human beings, because human beings without love are not properly living or are not properly awake. And now we come to the third stanza. Well, in the second stanza we have seen how the poet talks about the two worlds, the lover and the beloved, and how the two worlds conjoin and become one. The one unique, the one complete world of love. My face in thine eyes, thine in mine appears, and true plain hearts do in the faces rest. Where can we find two better hemispheres without sharp north, without declining west? So look at this. Well, two hemispheres. Now, as I pointed out to you, as I referred to the other poem of John Donne, Sun Rising, that the lover and the beloved, they form a complete world, and the two hemispheres are the lover and the world beloved separately. So separately they have their existence, as the two hemispheres do have their separate existence, but they become complete and whole when they become one world. So the two hemispheres conjoining and forming one full complete world, the world of love. And their hemispheres, meaning the hemispheres of the lover and the beloved, are without any thing which can be condemned or which can be denounced. And therefore, well, the poet here brings geography. Well, look at this. Sharp north, declining west. So the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere have their drawbacks, have their defects. The north, because of the sharp winds, the sharp cold, and the west declining. But our world, our hemispheres, we do not have any such thing. They are perfect, no imperfection. They are immaculate. So our two immaculate hemispheres, the hemisphere of the lover and the hemisphere of the beloved, will conjoin and form one full world. And when this formation is made, our love will be immortal. Well, because here we shall see the poet refers to the philosophy of St. Thomas Aquinas. In St. Thomas Aquinas' philosophy, it is said that when a compound is formed with elements which are perfect, the compound will become perfect and will not be subject to decay or death. So, the world of love is a compound which is formed by two hemispheres, the hemisphere of the lover and the hemisphere of the beloved, and the two hemispheres are perfect. And therefore, two perfect hemispheres have formed a perfect world of love. So, whatever dies was not mixed equally, meaning that which is mixed equally, meaning if the components are perfect and if they are conjoined perfectly, then the complete object will not be subject to any decay or death. If our two loves be one, and thou and I love so alike that none do slacken, none can die. So my love to you and your love to me, these two loves are so perfect, so equal. No one is loving more or less. The amount of love or the intensity of love of each is exactly equal to the amount and intensity of love of the other. So two perfect hemispheres, and they are blended, they are conjoined, and they form a compound that is the world of love. And therefore, our love is deathless. Our love is immaculate. Now please look. Good Morrow is also a love poem. And it is a different kind of a love poem. Why it is different? Now, well, look at the core of the poem. There is nothing different. The lover pronouncing the greatness of the beloved, the lover announcing the nobility of the love. There is nothing novel about it. Well, we can look back and even to Spencer. And in Spencer's poems also we see the same thing. So, well, nothing new over here. But what is new? The way Donne presents. The comparisons that Donne uses. Or in other words, the conceits that Donne uses. So, wheat and conceit, they are two primary things which we find in the metaphysical poets. Now, how Donne has described their love, what comparisons he has made, and how strange they seem to us. We have to note that. And as it is said that, well, there is always, as especially in the first stanza we have seen, there is always something strong. Not the, in a liquid fluidity of love, but something strong is there. Not the flowers and the moon and other things, but very strongly he presents the world of love. Donne presents the world of love to us. And what are the comparisons we have seen? He has taken his comparisons from everyday life, from legend, from geography, and from philosophy. So, the love poem becomes a different kind of a love poem. Although basically the theme is the same, but the presentation is definitely different. Now I shall come back to the thing which perhaps one would think of telling you at first. The point we started with, metaphysical poetry, metaphysical poem, John Donne, the leader of the school of metaphysical poets. But the question is, as I said in the beginning, what do we mean by metaphysical, and who coined these terms? Now we can say in brief that it was Drummond who first coined the term metaphysics or metaphysical, and then it was Dryden who coined the term. Pope also referred to the term metaphysical, but it was Samuel Johnson who made this term popular or well known. In his Lives of Poets, Dr. Johnson, in connection with his life of Cowley, he pointed out this term, that metaphysics or metaphysical, beyond the physical. Primarily, metaphysical means that. But Dr. Samuel Johnson did not use this term as something to praise them. In fact, the term was rather used in the sense of a slang. That, these poets were trying to create something which was not acceptable to the common readers, employing comparisons which were apparently out of context, comparing two objects which were not apparently connected to each other. Two things. One very common example is given from Donne, that the parting of the lover and the beloved is compared to the parting of the two legs of a compass. Now, to some of them, that seem to be rather vulgar. The separation between the lover and the beloved, the lover going away from the beloved, such a soft, such a sentimental thing. How can that be compared with the parting of the two legs of a compass? So rather vulgar, strong. But then, metaphysical poets have been resurrected, and their true merit has been shown. And we should be grateful to Professor Grierson, who perhaps is one great name who resurrected the metaphysical poets, and the great poet T.S. Eliot also spoke very favorably of the metaphysical poets. Now, what are the characteristics of metaphysical poetry? We have read that poem. We shall look at these characteristics and try to see whether these characteristics can be seen over there, the poem that we have read. One is concentration. Concentration means something. I told you that, the beginning is rather epigrammatic. What is an epigram? An epigram is a concentrated statement. Now, a sentence like, child is the father of man. This is a very concentrated statement. It has got to be explained, elaborated. Only then we can get the meaning. Rome was not built in a day. Very concentrated statement. The meaning of that statement may be available if we go on analyzing, explaining the sentence. Similarly, the beginning is very concentrated. The whole poem may be an example of concentration. So concentration and brief, closely woven, very closely woven. So we can definitely, make them elaborate. So a ball of wool, let us take the example of a ball of wool. It looks like a ball, small and concentrated. But we can definitely take one end of the wool and go further and further and further and further. Similarly, a concentrated statement. And then we can go on explaining. I wonder by my troth what thou and I did till we loved. That is the starting sentence. What did we do before we loved? Meaning, before we loved, we did not do anything. Meaning, before we loved, our life was meaningless. So this is the starting point. But how meaningless? In which way it was meaningless? And now the poem unfolds. And the poet uses a number of images, or rather conceits. I shall come to conceit right now. Conceits. And as he goes on, comparing their life prior to love as the life of a sucking baby, the life of a vulgar villager, etc., we understand. And then when he takes up the image of sleep, before love we were sleeping. As we have fallen in love, we have woken up, we are awakened. And good morrow to our waking souls. So thus a concentrated statement, and then gradually it is unfolded. So closely. And I told you while I was reading the poem, abrupt opening. As if in the midst of a conversation it begins. What thou and I did, I wonder by my troth. There is no introduction. As if without any introduction we jump onto a conversation, or we jump onto a statement. What thou and I did before we loved. So abrupt. And then there is an argument. Why life without love was meaningless? The argument. And then persuasion. And we are persuaded to believe, yes, life without love was meaningless. And what does Donne do to do that? He uses these two, conceit and wit. Now, what is a conceit? I'll tell you what is a conceit. A conceit is also a comparison. It is a kind of a far-fetched comparison. There is something striking about it. There is something striking about this comparison. And because the two things compared to each other are unlike each other. And this comparison generates a kind of a flash. And this flash gives us a kind of a truth about which we never thought. Now, look at this 7 sleepers. And, the 7 sleepers slept for centuries. And after that prolonged sleep, they woke up. So, as if the lover and the beloved had a prolonged sleep. And in this period, nothing happened to them. Life was dark to them. Life was meaningless to them. And now, they are awakened by the touch of love. And now, the color of life manifests itself to them. So, the conceit gives us a flesh, and that flesh gives us a truth about which we never thought. And then wheat. And in wheat, there is a kind of subtlety and there is a kind of amusement. So, wheat is rather an ingenious way of putting things. So, wheat is a fusion of the opposites. So, metaphysical conceit and metaphysical wheat are not separate, they are connected with each other. So, striking images, striking comparisons, which give us a flesh, and that flesh can lead us to truth about which we never thought, and ingenious way of putting things, which has both subtlety and amusement, and it is in fact fusion. Wheat does the work of a fusion, the fusion of the opposites. Now, the hemispheres, the two hemispheres, the lover and the beloved, are compared to two hemispheres. Apparently, something which we can think of, two hemispheres. But we know, geographically, it is true that the earth is changing. And the pattern of geography is changing. And the territories which were separated from each other, they come together and get separated. And the other territories which were one, they get separated. So this is a process of geography. And when the two territories come and get united, they become one. The lover and the beloved, they are one. They are separate. They do have their separate worlds. But when they conjoin, they become one. And that one is the world of love. And how they are conjoined? Not irregularly, but in a regular process, in a perfect process, in an immaculate way. And then we come to the philosophy of Saint Thomas Aquinas. I'll write down the name. Now please note, Saint Thomas Aquinas, the philosopher, Italian philosopher, 1225 to 1274. And Saint Thomas Aquinas, he has his philosophy that perfect components, when they are conjoined perfectly, they will not be, or the united whole will not be subject to any decay or death. So the lover and the beloved are perfect. They perfectly love each other. As I said while I was reading the poem, that the love of each for the other is neither less nor more. Neither less in intensity or in quantity nor more. So perfect element, and they're conjoined perfectly, and therefore their love will be immortal. So, just look at this. John Donne uses St. Thomas Aquinas' philosophy, but he uses the philosophy of the philosopher as a conceit, as a wheat. So fantastic comparison. And there is a flesh, and the flesh gives us the truth that only perfect things can generate perfect wholes. And if there is any perfection, that will never die, or that will never get destroyed. And then I'll talk to you of another thing which I mentioned when I was reading the poem. Well, I told you of the 7 sleepers. The 7 sleepers, and well, the reference to the legend. I gave you the reference to the legend. Well, that happened in, I'll give you the precise year, around 250 AD. Around 250 AD. And well, the Roman Emperor was Diocletian. Now look at this, the Roman Emperor, and well, Christianity had just come, well, only 250 AD. Well, so these 7 sleepers were new Christians. The Roman Emperor was perhaps searching for them. They would be persecuted, and to save from the hands of the Roman Emperor, they went and took shelter in a cavern or a cave, and they were entombed there for several centuries. And it is said that, well, during the reign of Theodosius, I'll give you the name. So, well, during the Diocletian era, that is about 250 AD, well, these 7 sleepers took shelter in the cavern, and Theodosius, well, when he came in 479, well, these 7 sleepers were discovered from the cave. So, for all these years, for more than 200 years, they had been sleeping. Now, sleep, well, I told you, right? Well, sometime back also, sleep is one very important image that John Donne has taken and used here. Sleep means inaction. Sleep means inactivity of the mind. Sleep means futility, meaning life is not doing anything. So sleep, we had been sleeping, the lover and the beloved had been sleeping before they fell in love with each other. So it was a period of sleep. And that sleep, how Donne presents that? He refers to the legend, the 7 sleepers who slept for more than 200 years. So that too is a conceit and a wheat. And well, I told you also of I read about the sharp north and the declining west. As the lover and the beloved, they are as if the sharp north and the declining west, but without the sharpness, without the decline. They are the 2 hemispheres, but not the intensity of cold, nor the declining movement. So, once again, he employs conceit and wit. Thus, this is definitely one of the most efficient poems of John Donne. And we can read this poem as a metaphysical poem. But I tell you one thing to remember, that these terms are not coined by the poets, are never coined by the poets. These terms are coined by later people who judge the poets. Donne wrote his poem in his own way. Donne wanted to do something because he was disgusted with the Elizabethan technique, with the Elizabethan form of love poems, the moonlight and the music and the flower and all that sentimental objects. He was disgusted, and therefore he wanted to do something. Now, it is said that he has brought strong elements, but perhaps here now in the 21st century we do not think that these are strong, or rather we enjoy them. And as one critic has pointed out, that Donne was an intellectual poet, and he was trying to find out an intellectual equivalence of emotion. Because you have to employ your brain, your mind to understand. Not simply the tearful objects, the tearful things. But the reader has to think. You have to think your feelings and feel your thoughts. And that is what perhaps Donne wanted to do. And whether we call it a metaphysical poem or not, that is a different thing. That is a tag which has been given to Donne and some other poets by people who try to judge them. But how Donne is connected with the association of sensibility. Actually it is the sensibility which connects and combines everything. Apparently the unconnected things find meaning in the sensibility of man. Because I was telling you about that poem, the separation of the lover from the beloved being compared to the two legs of the compass. But look at the thing very deeply. At the top of the compass, at the head of the compass, there is a pin, and that pin holds the two legs together. You can part the two legs, but the two legs cannot be parted because the pin is there. And that perhaps means that this pin is a love. Love is there. You can get physically separated for the time being, but that doesn't mean separation, because the love, which is the pin, is there, conjoining the lover and the beloved. So that amount of intelligence the reader must use to understand. And so it is the sensibility of man that either associates or dissociates. So everything depends on man's sensibility, man's understanding. And we have to understand Donne in the manner Donne wanted him to understand. So we can call his poems metaphysical poems. And there are so many books, there are so many critics who have written a lot about metaphysical poetry, the characteristics of metaphysical poetry, etc. And I have discussed some of them. But more important thing is reading the poem and trying to understand the poem in your own way. I think I have tried to do something to make you understand the poem, and Now you have to read the poem, and the more you read, the more you think, the more the poem will be clearer to you. Thank you.